tank of gas. Does he boots on the wood, let the whiskey pass? This is FAFO.
Welcome, everybody, once again to the FAFO Podcast. Look, it's not every day you meet someone whose career path goes from the pulpit to the FBI Academy at Quantico. Today's guest spent years preaching from the Bible before spending nearly a quarter century investigating criminals as an FBI special agent. Along the way, he witnessed humanity at both its best and its worst, gaining a perspective on justice, leadership, faith, and the human condition that few people ever experience. Now he's sharing those stories in his upcoming book, Irreverent, From Saving Souls to Chasing Sinners with the FBI. Please welcome our guest today, Mr. Eric Robinson. Eric, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me on. I am unique. I have not met somebody who's taken that path that I have, but then part of what's great about the FBI is they try to get people from diverse backgrounds and professions, and in this case, they got one from the Baptist Church.
That is so fascinating because you're right. Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah.
But with pastoring being the later in life deal, I mean, how did that come about? Well, first of all, how did you decide to become a pastor? What was that journey like?
That journey was me going to church when I was a kid, and it was normal. Wasn't pressured. I didn't get all excited about church, but also it was what the Robinsons did. And then as I went to college, now it became more personal, where I'm thinking, okay, how do I actually do something with my faith? That the highlight of that was I went on a mission trip to the Middle East when I was a junior in college, came back with that desire to now return to the mission field. This was in 1990, and I saw a group of 4 cute Christian girls that I knew from the ministry sitting at a frozen yogurt shop, and I'd had a ring on my finger as a promise to go back that I picked up at a Turkish bazaar. And I sat down at the table, I put the ring on there, and I said, "Who wants to marry me and go to Turkey?" And this cute girl with curly hair said, "I will." And I thought, I wasn't talking to you. You've got a boyfriend. So I was talking to the eligible gals. And then 2 years later, I put a better ring on her finger, and we were set to go overseas as missionaries. So we were going to do that, but there were some problems with family issues, and I thought, I'm not sure going to the Middle East while we're young kids and struggling with this. So then just took that route of youth pastor, assistant pastor. Then in the late 90s, the church where I was the assistant pastor at said, "Hey, we'd like to plant a new church in Jamestown, New York." And I said, "I'd love to do that." Went through that process, took about 12 core members with me, and we started a church that was meant to reach out to people, not to just bring in folks from a different church now coming to ours, but to be a place where I told them, if we're going to do anything, we're going to err on the side of grace. If God's going to judge us, he'll judge us for being too welcoming. And that was successful by any measure.
Oh, I love that, though. I mean, that's an incredible thing. First of all, being a pastor and walking that path is a very special calling, I think. I mean, it's difficult because you are a human being. I mean, it is a difficult thing. And tell me about your walk with the faith, and then what led you to the FBI doing this.
Yeah, well, you kind of gave it away. It's difficult. And I had nothing specifically, that was harder for me. I just lacked the capacity to separate myself from people's problems. So when they would come to me in their normal, "Hey, pastor, I've got an issue" type situation, it burdened me. And so that led to a lot of stress. And that stress led to me having headaches every single day for 2 years.
Oh.
And it came to a point where I'm fighting against it. Maybe they'll go away, get things checked out, until eventually I'm thinking, well, if my body's trying to give me a signal and I ignore headaches every single day, what will it do next? Do I wake up with a stroke? And so in order to find a job with less stress, I joined the FBI.
That is so mind-numbing, because it really seems like that would be the polar opposite. And I do want to touch on that a little bit, but just and just to wrap up this faith part before we get into the FBI here, a lot of people might say, well, okay, wow, isn't that walking away from your faith? But that's not really true in this regard. I mean, it sounds like you're doing what's best for the congregation. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth and for your fellowship, but to be healthy and to be present is a very important thing in your faith. Can you talk about that?
Well, I that's what I had been doing. And to all the people who are saying what you said, screw you, you're wrong. I had spent that time trying to stay in ministry because I enjoyed it. And I felt like we did things. I got to do ministry now as the senior pastor the way I thought it should go. That, we're not just going to play a Billy Graham film and invite our neighbor that we invited last year too and say, yeah, that's outreach. Like, we're going to have church that's unconventional, that's welcoming, that, I gave those people in my church what I called a flinch test. When you see somebody come in who's not dressed for church, who's got weird tattoos or piercings, alcohol in the breath, homosexual couple, can you say, I'm so glad you're here? And there's no judgment. And we did that. So that was great. So that's why I stuck it out for 2 years instead of 5 months. And that was a hard decision. I preached my last sermon in the church on Easter of 2002. I was in Quantico, Virginia at the FBI Academy the next Sunday. And then the Sunday after that, I preached in the chapel in the FBI Academy because they didn't have a chaplain and they asked me to fill in.
That's actually very, very awesome. I love that though. But how did the family react to this switch?
Well, so at the time, just my wife and newborn. So, 1-year-old has no say in the matter. But it was hard for a time for my wife because we had been working in ministry together. Now suddenly I'm off on my own. She was accustomed to collaborating, setting up Bible studies, doing these things together. And now, we could still be active in a church, but now Eric's doing his own thing. He's off and away. As far as my dad goes, my dad's still he'll wear FBI gear to the grocery store so that hopefully the cashier will say, "Oh, FBI," and he goes, "Yeah, my son's," and so now he can start telling stories.
That's so much fun though. So let's talk about the FBI journey then. So what was that like though? You're a pastor. Now you're in this brave, bold new world for you. How was that?
That's a fire hose. So I never handled a gun. Now I have to learn how to shoot. I'm a smart enough guy, but this is a new concept to be learning law enforcement. So learning law enforcement, okay, that's one thing. And then you're trying to understand the FBI, which is huge. So I spent 24 years in it, and I'm going to guess that I learned 75% of what the FBI does. There's positions I don't know about. There's tech that I've never heard of. There's so many things that's so broad. And so now I'm trying to take that in. The advantage I had was once we got out in the field, much of what you do in law enforcement, doesn't matter what tech is there or judicial process, you have to work with people. And I had done that for 12 years of learning how to connect with people and listen. So that was now my advantage that I could use through my career in the FBI.
Did you find, before I ask you this next question, what did you find the best part about being in the FBI? What was the best thing about it?
That it's cool.
That is true.
I had a buddy who went to Princeton, and he tells me one day, he goes, "Man, I'm looking at all my college friends, and they're like CEOs and doctors and running organizations." And I said, "Hey, man, you're on the FBI SWAT team. They all wish they were you." And I mean that. I got to be on SWAT for 15 years, and I think it's amazing that a guy like me can say, "Yeah, I was on the FBI SWAT team," because I think that stands out. People go, "That's remarkable that you got to do that." And I think so too.
And how was that experience being on the SWAT team? I mean, I've got to imagine if you're on the FBI SWAT team, you must be involved in some intense situations. This is not like just pulling somebody over and writing a ticket. I mean, this is intense stuff. What is that experience like?
Well, it is, but also what we did is a lot safer than pulling somebody over. Because a cop goes to a vehicle, like police officers get thrown into whatever's there. Like they don't know. The FBI typically can plan location, time, circumstances around when we take somebody down. There's always occasions where it's like, go and here you are. But we would come with 15 guys, lasers on the end of our rifle that we can shine in windows, ballistic rated Bearcat, 14-foot boom breach if we need to, tech to send through windows. Like there's a lot that we could do. And there were many times where you'd see the bad guy, look through the curtains, and if it's two deputies, now you've got a decision to make. 15 FBI SWAT operators on a loudspeaker throwing flashbangs saying, come on out. There's no choice.
Yeah.
Your choice is to come out or die. So, guys, we get inside. Now we see by those drapes that he's peering out, there was a gun. As he was thinking, do I try to shoot it out? Obviously I don't, because I can't win that.
I'm so glad you answered that question that way, because it really did bring a perspective I wasn't even thinking about, because I know plenty of law enforcement, and we know the job is dangerous. But I think when you think FBI in these intense situations like I was trying to describe, you really don't think a lot of the times about these normal traffic stops that end so many times in an officer's death, because they're just there what they think is a normal traffic stop, and then some yahoo is just who knows what he's thinking.
Yeah, the FBI, my uncle and my dad would always be worried about my safety, and that's, obviously there's a greater likelihood of getting a gun pointed at me in the FBI than in the pastor, but we spent most of our time in the office looking for bad guys amid paper and computers, whereas cops have it where, you get what you get, dispatcher sends you somewhere, and I guess we'll see what's there.
So did you have to rotate in specific field offices with the FBI? Or you?
Yeah, so I started in Chicago, spent 8 years there, and then got back home to the Cleveland division, Toledo office. Toledo was home. And, if you get sent somewhere and you want to work that field, that division, your whole career, pretty good chance you can, you're in LA, stay in LA for your whole career.
Oh, I hope we didn't lose you.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I think I lost you there.
Yeah, you still with me? Yeah.
What's up? I heard LA in your whole career, and then I lost you.
Oh yeah. So if you get transferred out of Quantico to a place like LA or wherever, and you just want to stay there your whole career, yeah, you can stay there, and then you get one shot to move depending on where you want to go. If you want to get to North Carolina, you're not likely to get back, but some places you can get to. And then what's great about the FBI is if you're in the DEA, man, you're working dope, and that's all you're working. And I did that, and it's exciting. But then also I got to move on to white collar crimes, public corruption. You can move around and get to a different violation and just kind of get that broader idea of what federal work looks like.
That's actually so cool, because I've always been interested. You guys who have been in the FBI so long, you worked for many bosses.
Yes,
and you certainly worked for many for leadership and the main leadership. How many different bosses have you worked under in 20 years? I was trying to put together how many different FBI directors there have been over the last 25 years.
Yeah, so I missed out on Louis Freeh. I came in under Robert Mueller. So it was Mueller, and then aside from the guys who were in the post, interim, Mueller, Comey, and then Ray and Patel.
Wow, geez, such a diverse leadership group and style. It sounds like, for the most part.
Yeah, the guys who were older than me all loved Louis Freeh. He was an agent's agent. Mueller was very strict. I did not have this under Bob Mueller.
Gotcha.
But he was also very competent. Jim Comey came in, and he was definitely more for the people, which I liked that swing. And then with Chris Wray, I think we got kind of both. He would stand up for the Bureau, whereas Mueller would just keep quiet. Comey talk maybe a little too much. And Ray, I felt like hit a good spot in the middle.
Yes. Again, that is just so fascinating how all of that works. So let's talk about your book. This. I really want to talk about this. I love the title of it. Irreverent. That is a really great title. So let's go into it. What possessed you to write the book?
Well, so the stupidest question asked in my house over the past year was when I was nearing retirement, and I asked my wife, who has spent the last 14 years of her life having set up a company that markets and promotes authors. So I asked my wife, what should I do? And she says, write a book. Naturally, she was going to say that. So I sit down and I start telling these stories of cases that I initiated, that I got to be a part of. And I can get on the phone right now. I can call a random FBI agent and say, tell me a crazy story. And they will, because we've all been a part of them. But this is not just that story, one after another, of some great cases I got to work, but also it's a story of what happens when you take a pastor out of the pulpit and you stick him in the FBI and you get to see some of this.
That is, oh my God, that is crazy. First of all, that you make all that switch and you've got all those things. How was it actually writing the book itself when you're in it? Because if your wife's been doing this, she understands that part of it. But how was it for you getting into that?
Well, part of it is, she gives me a book from one of her clients, which is how to write a book. And I read it and I go, okay, kind of had the idea already, but I sit down to type and, I get a laptop and it's the first Saturday. I start in the morning. I just keep going because this is what we do. We tell stories. And so now I'm just putting it in the computer. We go to bed on Saturday and I say, I've got 10,000 words. And she says, what? I said, yeah, I got 10,000 words. That's good. Because it's just me going through like, hey, here's the story. And so, I'm writing it on weekends and evenings, and it flows to the point where I got, now I've got so much, let's start paring it down. And some of these stories that I think are pretty cool, like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but let's trim that away for the really good ones. And just been working on it ever since, of getting it as tight as I can as possible.
So are you in the publishing phase of it now?
I am. So I'm in the editing phase with an eye towards publishing. So my wife's company, which promoted authors, the company is Weaving Influence. As they have promoted authors, last year they said, well, why not publish too? So you get, somebody who's small, mid-level author who's not going to go with the traditional big house. Now they're going to be able to put that book together in paper, in audio. So we're set to publish in October, and yet in the meantime, I have been in touch with a traditional publisher who has bigger ideas for what we could do, and that would be great because now you get more traction, more ass behind you on that. And it also might mean that things get pushed back, but it's what I refer to as a too many girlfriend problem.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I love the fact that she has her own company, Weaving Influence. I'm going to go check that out because I'm an author, self-published.
Yeah.
I used to have my own publishing company, but man, I couldn't stick it out like she has. It's a tough business because you got to have enough people to make it worth your business, first of all. But you also have the tools to do it. It sounds like she does.
Yeah, what's great about what they've done is they get their clients. So these are people who, again, it's not high-level Penguin House people. Sometimes it might be, but it's typically someone who's like, I've got a book, I've got some money, I want to get this idea out there, and now I'm going to drop 10, 20, 30,000, whatever it might be, to promote it. At the same time, now they've got a chance to say, well, I can go with you, I can go with them. Let's do this hybrid publishing. So rather than have the ones that are in the airport, you've got ones like, hey, I'm just getting this out because I believe in my message.
Oh, that's cool. Well, if y'all don't mind, I will certainly put that link down to her company down below when this interview is over.
Absolutely.
Because I have no problem. I love people who do this stuff anyway, so it's near and dear to my heart. So I will be more than happy to promote that, and just to get that out there, and I'll go check it out too. But I do want to know when your book comes out, because this sounds like a very interesting read. Is there a certain story in here, without giving anything away, that you can allude to? Because we want people to read the book.
Oh,
I think
so
that's important.
no, well, see, part of, and I've had enough days off, or swing days where I've been on this end of my wife's phone call, so I understand aspects of the marketing, and there's no problem in giving it away, because if I give you a story, you're going to go, "That's a good story,"
That's right.
and now you want to read the rest. But yeah, so I wrote the book with like, hey, this is me as a pastor. This is how I transitioned, a little time in the academy. And now I'm going to get into some of those stories. And I felt like the first story that probably would be best in that transition into, let's talk about the cases, was a time I was asked to sit down across from a pastor after he had been arrested for being involved in a sex trafficking ring. So here's me as a pastor coming to the FBI, and now I get to face one of my own. And I'm pretty sure I was asked to do this because, hey, you speak same language. Here we go.
Yeah.
I took upon that, and I put together a very literal come to Jesus message, that I knew the case. I knew the evidence I had to get into to get a confession out of him, but I wanted to prompt him first. So like, hey, the Bible says this about getting right with God, turning from your sins. And I'm prompting him with that, letting him know I used to be a pastor too. And he says to me, he goes, "Hey man, respectfully, I'll talk to you, but we're not going to bring Jesus into this," which was very obvious. That's how he lived his life.
Yeah.
Because here he is on Sundays, here he is communing with his people, helping them out. And then here's the guy who's having sex with a teenage girl, and Jesus ain't there. So if we're going to talk about this, Jesus wasn't there before. I don't want him here now. And he had bifurcated his life that way. It's crazy that he could. I think there's probably some shame in it too, that like, hey man, you're telling me this stuff, and I know, I already know I shouldn't have been doing this. But that guy ended up going. He was offered, I think, 12 years, and his attorney said, chuckled and said, "Hey, we'll take our chances," even though I got a confession out of him. And he got a life sentence, which is very rare.
Wow. Jeez. It's really amazing when you get into it. And this is the other part I wanted to ask you about, being in the FBI. Did you ever have to do any of, so I'm assuming y'all have to take classes?
Yeah.
And update and all that stuff. So was profiling ever a thing you had to do? Not because it's the sexy thing to do, but just so pattern recognition and behavior recognition?
No, we've got our behavior analysis unit, and I've been I haven't called on them, but I've been a part of investigations where they're called in to say, hey, here's everything we know about our subject. Like we're not trying to find him, we know him. Give us some suggestions on angles we should take when we do the interrogation. Like, what do you think is going to break into him? And they would, give some analysis there. Otherwise, in the academy, you're taught like how to do interviews and interrogations, and it really comes down to how you are as a person. Like, first off, you're going to learn from the older agents. You're going to sit in on interviews. You're going to see how they do it, and you go, okay, that's good, or I'm never doing that because that's terrible. But it's really about how you approach people anyway. Do you know how to connect with them? Are you finding a way to break through? And over time, I had some surefire methods of like, this is how I'm going to get this guy. And this I've seen this work. It's going to work here. And a lot of that was built upon the understanding that when I come to your door and I bust it down and I tell you I'm going to take you to prison, your state of mind is, holy shit, I need to understand this situation. And so I've been here hundreds of times. This is probably your first and the worst day of your life. And so now I'm say, hey, let me help you through this. I know I can be your guide. I'm going to tell you what you're facing so that you can ease your mind in this moment. Because even though courts in the future, and that's terrible, this moment is the biggest deal in your life right now, trying to get control over what's happening. And so I'm going to take advantage of that. And that's going to mean you and I are going to have a conversation. The conversation lets you know what's happening. And so now you start feeling better. And you're also going to answer some of my questions. And I can tell you, like, look, anytime you don't want to answer a question, you don't have to answer it. However, once you start talking, like, you feel a social responsibility to keep having those discussions. And so as we move along, like, you're telling me stuff you shouldn't be telling me. And then you're like, how did I get here?
Yeah, I think that does speak to the human psychology. Like, we want to speak and we want to talk.
Yeah.
We certainly want to alleviate ourselves of any of the burdens we've been suppressing in our minds, whether it's secrets or just the way we feel about society in general. And, you know, knowing that, like, you're part of the FBI, or we're part of the FBI, and you're doing this job, knowing how the world is right now, especially the media-driven narratives of everything. Cops are all bad. You're terrible for human beings. Why do you even exist? You know, like, how is it really like inside the FBI with the men and women you work with? I'm like, versus what we hear in the media all the time about, oh, it's so awful.
Well, number one, the men and women in the FBI are the best people I've met. Professional, intelligent, dedicated, creative. Like, they are across the board trying to do what's right. And the headlines that you see are the 0.05% of the FBI that most people want no part of. The worst thing that can happen to an FBI agent is a 202 area code for Washington, D.C. showing up on your phone, because you don't want any part of that. I just want to work this case. This is a good case. This is righteous. I'm going to do what's right. And I don't want anything political. I don't want any trouble. I just want to do good stuff. And so the people in the FBI are almost, exclusively trying to do what's good, and not just follow the law, but also many times, and I myself have been part of this consideration, is this right to do? Not just, is this legal? Can we get away with this? But like, do we want to do this to this kid, or, bring this shame? So we're trying to do what's right, and for 118 years, done it successfully.
That is so wild that has been around that long. But I guess when you see, and this will be kind of a funner-ish question. I don't even know if that's a freaking word, and I'm a writer.
It's not.
That's so sad. That's so sad. But when you see TV, and we've seen all these FBI shows now, of course, you've got Criminal Minds and all these things that really, make it fun. It's like, oh my God, that looks like the best job. Like, I'm an X-Files fan from way back.
Oh yeah.
Mulder, let's go. That's what I want to do. That would be so much fun. But do you think shows like that have really romanticized the FBI to a degree?
Well, let me start with this. My youngest kid has gone through a Criminal Minds streak, and she would put it on the TV, and then she would pause it, knowing that I had been here before. And she'd say, you get 5 complaints and then you shut your mouth. And I'm running through that before they've like listed all the characters. I'm like, God, nobody does that. That's not even a gun that's been in the FBI for 50 years. So yeah, it's romanticized, but it also, if you had a TV show that was realistic, it would be boring. And so I can tell you exciting stories. Those exciting stories happened over a 2-year investigation with a lot of, like misses and arguments and, informants who went sideways. But let me take out all the stupid stuff and condense it, and you go, oh man, that's wild. Like, yeah. And it was tough too. But, here's the great story. It's there when you distill it.
And that's the reason I asked you, because I talked to a buddy of mine who's in the FBI, or he was in the MBI. And we were having those conversations about, do these things help you or hinder you? He said, and he told me, he said, they're fun to watch for one reason. He said, because, it's condensed. You know what happens over an extended period. He said, but what it does is it might get somebody interested in what we do and want to become part of what we do over the years. Would you agree or disagree with that?
No, that's definitely something that it often will go to, hey, I used to watch X-Files or Criminal Minds, and then I reached out to my local office and say, can I talk to an agent? And then you get to a place where, people follow that career path. I had a buddy. So one day after a SWAT hit, I turn to my buddy and I say, hey man, what's going on for you for the holidays? And he says, oh, I'm going to go back to Jamestown for the in-laws. And I said, I know most of the people in Jamestown. What's their last name? And he tells me. And I go, hey, about 7 years ago, did you talk to an FBI agent on the phone for an hour about joining the Bureau? And my buddy, who was a pastor, had called and said, oh, my future son-in-law is thinking about leaving the Army and joining the Bureau. Would you talk to him? I said, oh, absolutely. I talked to him. Fine. Here you go. Tell you what the FBI is like. 7 years later, this guy is next to me in the stack on SWAT, like something I never could have imagined. That's great. It's not just, there's whatever, 15,000 agents, something like that. Like, how does that happen where he comes right back to where I am, processing out of some other office, but coming to Cleveland and being next to me? And he's a great guy.
That is so wild, but it's also the most fascinating thing about how life works and the most mysterious thing.
Yeah.
And I think it keeps life interesting. Dude, I could talk to you all day. I'm not going to try to be in your ear all day. I just appreciate you dedicating this much time to this crazy podcast. But look, Eric, it's been great talking to you. I would love to have you back after this book launches, because I'm buying this book. I just need to know when it launches, because I love these stories, and I'm so appreciative of guys like you who go out there and serve. I mean, it's just because I hate the fact that the reason this podcast got started, and I'll share this with you real quick, is simply because I get tired of hearing all the political narrative and the media-driven narrative and all that stuff. I'm friends with actual men and women, people.
Yeah.
And I love people and finding out what their story is. And everybody's got such a great story if you just choose to listen to it instead of letting all the other stuff get in there. So I have respect for law enforcement. I have family in it, of course, and then tons of friends that are in law enforcement. So I always worry about those guys and gals so much out there. But thank you so much for being a part of law enforcement and serving our community, because God knows it's needed.
Yeah. Well, it was my great pleasure. It was something that I was fascinated with when the FBI said, come on board. I went, wow, really? And even though I had tough times, things I didn't like, I was fascinated all throughout of, this is amazing that I get to do this. And now that I'm done, I look back and go, hey, that was cool.
Oh, so one last question. Was it hard walking away?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I have a buddy who's nearing retirement. He goes, man, I'm talking to my therapist. My therapist goes, how much do you identify with being an FBI agent as you're nearing retirement? And he goes, yeah, a lot. And the therapist says, well, that's going to be a problem. And I go, buddy, that doesn't help. I realize that myself. And so when you had that identity, not just of like what you do so much, but it's also important, and you have authority and there's exhilaration in it. I was thinking, oh my gosh, what happens when I'm not that guy anymore? And so I still value that. I miss getting up at 1 a.m. to drive across the state for a SWAT hit. I miss the thrill of hitting that door with the ram. I miss the people. I miss the action that we do. But I didn't properly estimate how much it was nice to also not have to do that. where I can go to a party and not worry if I'm going to get called out, on the phone and have to leave, as I had done many times. So it's, I miss it. I definitely miss the people, but also, being able to just live your life and not have to be that guy is also pretty good too.
How's the family feel about it? About dad retiring, husband retiring?
Well, yeah, it's pretty much just husband now. So the kids have moved on. I've got one just about to go out to college. So it's empty nest. And so now we'll see about stage 3 and how that progresses for me.
Well, good luck to you, brother. I certainly appreciate your time today. And how can people follow you and get your book when it comes out? How do they keep track of you, Eric?
Yeah, they can keep track of me a few different ways. One is if you put like one of those Apple tags in my pocket, you can track me that way. Also, but if you want to go online, I'm on LinkedIn, Eric Robinson. Put in FBI, you'll see this face. Instagram, I spent years using fake accounts just to troll bad guys. And my wife says, you need an actual one. So _Eric_Robinson surprisingly was available in January. So that's where you can follow me. Or you can go to my website, and I don't think you're ready for this. It's preachertobreacher.com.
Oh, that's cool. Preacher to Preacher. And if you go on his that site, I know it's got a sign up where you can drop your name, drop your email in there, and get notified.
Yep.
When this
and my team is building it out, so we should be going live pretty soon here where there'll be content. I'm going to burn some DVDs where you can have little clips where you can watch me back in the day when I had long hair and was preaching and say, oh, that's kind of fun.
That's cool. And I know this because I signed up while we were talking. Because when you started talking about the book, I knew I needed to be a part of it. You're a fascinating human being, that's for sure.
You know what's crazy is, so I've and I'll recommend this book. Scott Payne wrote a book fairly recently called Operation Pale, or Codename Pale Horse, where he talks about going undercover to white supremacists and stuff. It's a great book.
I had to write that down.
Yeah, and I've read ones like that where guys are infiltrating things like. So those are awesome. I think if you read my book, you'll go, oh, that's really cool. And also, I think I could do that because I'm not special. I got to be special. The FBI offered me these opportunities to draw out things that I wouldn't have otherwise. I'm a fucking crack shot now. I never touched a gun before, but I'm pretty good. And what's great is I wasn't the best shot on the team, but I knew I could hit what I needed to hit. And then here's guys are like, dude, they're even better. Look at this.
Damn. Geez, that's wild. That is, learning all those new skill sets had to be fun.
It is. So I was challenged by my primary firearms instructor, the guy who heads up our firearms program. He goes, hey, we're going to have slots. Eric, you should try out to be a firearms instructor. And I thought, I'm not that good. Like, I never failed a firearms test, but I also knew like my groupings were not tight. Like I'm getting them in the target, but you know, I'm not looking like this. And so I spent 2 months on my own, just taking those shots and trying to be mindful of like, what's my grip? What's my breath? Where am I holding the sights? And what's that turning out over there? And I did that. And all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, that concentrated time. And then adding on with SWAT, getting more training, like I got to be really good. And then SWAT was like, oh, let's get you just even a little bit better.
So was there a thing mentally where you had to go, I got to stop going for the sexy look while I'm trying to shoot and go for the one that works? Is there a difference there?
So there's fundamentals that the Bureau teaches pretty much across the board. So like you talk to me or you talk to my buddy, and there's, you know, like if we're going to build you from ground up, most of it is going to be the same. And then we get to where now you're already in that program, you're an FBI shooter, and yet you're not that good. And now you're going to have those nuances where this guy found that this works well. I find that this works well. You know, I'm looking at, you know, your grip coming off and noticing that. So
yeah,
the fundamentals are pretty much there of just having a strong base where you got your back leg just a little bit off, make sure your toes are pointed, you know, get that good grip. I used to teach that like when you've got your thumb against the slide or against the base of it, I would tell people like I get that thing as forward as I can. So it's like I'm shooting with my thumb. So that's there. I would teach people as you draw now, you know, the larger grip is going to come from your offhand. So I try to do like 60, 40, 70, 30. But as I come up, that offhand is pulling back as I'm pushing out. So my strong hand's pushing out. Now I'm getting that grip, rotating the thumb forward, and I'm getting to where I've got, you know, this strong place where it's push, and holding back. And here is so much more stable than pushing out all the way. So
Gotcha.
right here, that recoil isn't going to swing as much as way out in the end. So that's a few fundamentals. You don't even have to pay me for that. That's like $1,000 lesson.
I swear that's excellent. And I should have put this in the podcast.
Dude, right, exactly.
I'm going to edit this into it.
Yeah.
That is perfect advice.
Yeah, it is. I spent one podcast, go through, talk for half an hour. And the guy's like, afterwards, he goes, hey, let me ask you a few questions. We talk for another half hour. I go, bro, you just missed a podcast. Like, that's another. He goes, I'll have you back on. We'll talk about the same stuff. And we did.
But it's cool. So have you enjoyed doing podcasts? I'll just ask you that as a rando off the side. I mean, because this is a whole new thing for you, right? Having to go and do interviews like this.
Yeah. I mean, talking to people like you roll the dice, and there's some where I go, oh my gosh. And they're not many. Most people kind of get the idea, oh, okay, I suck at this after you've done 50. But most folks like you, like, hey, if you're bringing energy, I'm bringing energy. Let's do this. And now, we're vibing well. I mean, it's enjoyable to tell these stories. And my wife told me in February, like, hey, you should start pushing your book, even though it's not ready yet. And so for the past March, April, May, June, 5 months, I've been on probably average of 30 shows a month. Man, so more than that, actually. I'm probably up to 175 total. So
good God, that's good though. You're a pro at this point.
Right. Well, and I hope you can see too, like, oh, okay, Eric expresses himself well. Like, I'm not, chirping on for too long, and hopefully.
But you're a natural at it. That's the other thing. I mean, because that's it's one of the reasons I asked about him, because you come off as like, this does not faze you at all. You're right. You're easily having the conversation, which just being a pastor probably got you geared up to talk to people. So that's good.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're promoting something, like when I'm on the other side of this and I'm in your seat and people are asking me questions, I'm with you. Like, if you're just blasé, then I'm kind of like, oh, this is going to be, I'm going to have to force this.
Yeah, I'm tired because I got to carry this whole thing.
That's right.
No, so like one time I'm on a show and a guy, it was very political, and I try not to I don't like doing political stuff because my opinion is as valuable as yours. It's an opinion. Agreed. But he asked he asked me a question that really put me on the spot, that I didn't want to offend him, but I didn't like his question. And in a second, I came up with something really good. I'm like, oh, Eric, that's. So he said, like, are you upset that America is no longer a Christian nation, that it's being taken over by other religions? And I go, yeah, if this was a Muslim country, I would feel uncomfortable. However, I also have met many Muslims who are very patriotic and dedicated to the United States, informants who helped out. Like, there are many good points, and any group can abuse, what if they're in power, Christian, Muslim, whatever it is. Your ideology can be abusive if you don't use it for people's good. And that's when I knew I could do this.
That's right. If we only had a contract that said we have freedom of religion in this country, what would that be like?
That'd be great if we could.
Awesome. It's crazy. Hey, brother, I appreciate it. I'm going to keep rambling, and I'm sorry about that, but I've enjoyed the conversation, dude. You're awesome, and I'm serious. When your book comes out, if you want to come back, I want to have you back. That's already a given. If you're not too busy and overly popular at that time, because you're making the rounds, dude. So
my book's set to be published, and yet we're in talks with another publisher. And one of the things he goes, I loved your book. This is a great book. I see a lot of promise here. And then he said, but I'm not going to take it. I'm going to suggest you make these changes. If you feel comfortable, then come back to me. So now I'm trying to trim it and get it ready to what he said. And some of the stuff I look at and I go, yeah, I just needed someone like you to tell me it's a little too much. And he said he kind of got like thrill fatigue. Like, that was an awesome story. And then you come back and like, okay, here's another awesome story. Like, give me a break for a bit. So I trimmed some things out, and I'm going to get ready to send that back to him in a couple weeks. But out of the blue, he emails me and he goes, yeah, I see this as a TV series. And I go, yeah, absolutely. Like, everybody wants a police procedural, and now you've got one, but like, how is it going to be different? Well, this guy used to be a pastor, so all set. And he goes, first person I would call to produce it would be Matthew McConaughey. And I go, all right. I can.
But that would be different nowadays as to how they would have done this in the 80s.
Yeah.
Because if they'd have tried to do your story in the 80s, that pastor, every time he had, as an FBI agent, stop somebody, he'd be blessing them on the spot.
Yeah.
You know how the 80s were.
Well,
but today we'll tell it perfectly.
Well, and that's the irreverent part, because, yeah, I'm a reverend, but we were not doing, but involved in some very unholy situations. So disgusting, dirty stuff you don't see in church. But I think the one thing I'm going to demand is that if we do go TV series, we go HBO so we can maximize the nudity. Yes. And I've told my buddies that. I go, dude, we don't have a locker room, but there'll be so many shower scenes, just gratuitous male nudity. All
there you go.
Guys, like,
that totally reminds me. I should have asked you, when you first started running across some of that serious stuff that you'd never seen in your life before, how was that experience?
I mean, you process it by talking about it, not like I'm crying on your shoulder, but just having a discussion. And part of it too is, if you jump in the ocean, it's freezing. If you're wading in the water for a long time, now you're more accustomed to it. It's still cold, but you're getting used to it. So having been in a lot of these situations where, we're investigating a child pornography distributor. Okay. Like, you take me straight out off the street and put me into that, like, oh, this is terrible. But when you're already in it, now you're getting a little acclimatized, and then you just, you make jokes about it. So I had a buddy who was very like hyper Christian. There was, him, then Pope, and then down from there. And he got moved to the Crimes Against Children squad, which is going to be like, you have to be looking at child pornography that these guys are sending. And I had people ask me like, hey, how's, people from outside were saying, hey, how's he doing with that? And I told them how, because one day I'm in their squad room chatting about a case coming up, and my buddy goes, hey, Eric, can you give me your opinion on this? And I turned to his computer, and huge on his screen is a shot that some subject sent of him naked in a bathtub with his little willy in there. And I go, okay, you're going to be all right then, aren't you?
Well, I imagine your mindset would definitely have to change to be able to make it through that.
Yeah.
Seeing that stuff on a daily. Dude, again, thank you so much for being here. I wish you nothing but the best. And I do hope we can talk again after this book launches, because I'm getting it and I'm reading it because I'm so fascinated by your story. And it really is a great story.
I appreciate it very much. Thanks for the support.
Thanks, brother. Take care of yourself, and we'll talk soon.
Yep.
All right, guys. Wow. Eric Robinson, from pastor to FBI agent. Now he's about to be a published author. Stories like this is what should move you. I know it moves me, especially when you hear people who are making these changes in their lives and they're serving the greater good. And we need more people like Eric to do that. I can't wait for Irreverent to come out. This ought to be a fascinating read. Just by talking to him today, you kind of got that feel. So make sure you go and check out his website. All the links are going to be down below. Hit Eric up. We love good people here on the FAFO Podcast. So speaking of, you are listening to the FAFO Podcast. Facts, truth, no BS. Let's F and go. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Four on the floor, have a tank of gas. Does he boots on the wood, let the whiskey pass?